What's up, guys? As you can see, the hair's gone again. No particular reason. I didn't really need a haircut just yet. But I'm entering a Desmond Wolfe lookalike contest, and damn it, I intend to win. Anyway, there's a lot of news in the last week to talk about. A lot of big things happening, and I thought that you guys deserve to hear my thoughts on all the stuff that's going on. Of course, a big announcement. TNA is going to be having a live 3-hour show on Monday, January 4th, going head-to-head with Raw, which is huge. Going to be Hogan's Impact debut. They're probably going to have some big things planned. This is exciting, and it'll definitely get them some publicity. But they couldn't have picked a worse night to do this, because January 4th is rumored to be the night that The Rock is going to be guest hosting Raw. Out of all the nights TNA could have done this, they picked the week when The Rock is going to be making his first live WWE appearance in like 5 years. Look, I give TNA props for having the guts to take a risk like this, but there's taking a risk, and then there's just being stupid. Of course, Hogan is saying that the show is going to do a 3.0 rating because he's going to be on it, even though the show is going to be up against Raw with The Rock and the Fiesta Bowl. But I'm going to give you guys a little spoiler, okay? January 4th, the 3-hour live Impact show is not going to draw a 3.0 rating. And if you think for 1 second that it is, then you need a freaking CAT scan. Alright, most likely the show will do a number comparable to what it does now. Maybe a little more, maybe a little less, but they're not going to do triple the usual rating. And to suggest that they are is just idiotic. I don't care if they have Hulk Hogan, Sting, Rob Van Dam, Stone Cold Steve Austin, the ghost of Eddie Guerrero. It's just not going to happen. I mean, the last time Impact and Raw went head-to-head was back in, I think, 2007, when Raw got preempted and aired on Thursday, and they crushed Impact. I mean, they cut TNA's audience in half. And this time, Impact will be on a different night, starting at a different time. You know WWE is going to be doing tons of counter-programming. Probably going to have another 3-hour inter-brand show. They're going to have all the biggest stars on there. They're going to load it up with huge matches. They're probably going to have The Rock all over the place. I mean, if TNA thinks that just because they have Hulk Hogan that they can compete with all that, then I think they're seriously overestimating Hogan's drawing power. I mean, the big question is Hogan still the draw that he thinks he is, and that TNA thinks he is in 2010? I mean, TNA need to ask themselves that. On the Impact a few weeks ago, when they announced that he was coming into the company, the announcement drew the lowest rating of that whole show, because people didn't care. I think it's great that TNA are trying to shoot for the fences, but right now, I'm thinking they're just going to get trounced in the ratings on January 4th. I mean, I heard last Saturday that they were shooting for a 1.5 rating, and I really hope that was just a rumor, because I don't see any way they can get a 1.5. I mean, their highest rating ever on their usual night was a 1.3, and on a different night with all this competition, they'll probably be lucky if they can hold on to the 1.0 rating they're doing now. And I said this on QCW Radio last Saturday. I mean, if TNA want to get that kind of audience retention, they need to work up every ounce of their advertising muscle and promote the living fuck out of this thing. They need to hype this show like it's bound for glory, and I am not kidding. Unfortunately, that's one of TNA's biggest problems, if not their biggest, advertising and promotion. And if they take the same half-assed approach to hyping this show like they have for hyping Final Resolution, then Raw is just going to annihilate them. So I think it's an exciting thing to do, bringing back the Monday Night Wars for one night and kind of testing the waters against Raw. But TNA picked the worst possible time to do this, and unless they really pull out all the stops, then they might have to swallow their pride when the ratings come out on the 5th. And I really hope I'm dead wrong about that, believe me, but that's the situation as I see it. Also, some other news, WWE is getting rid of ECW. I don't know the specifics. I don't know if they're going to cut the show entirely or just rebrand it or something. But either way, it looks like the ECW name is going away for good now. And this is fantastic news, because that show has been Tuesday Night Heat since day one. And to continue calling it ECW is just absurd. So the Tuesday show might still exist in some form or another, but it looks like it won't be ECW anymore. That's awesome, because it is a joke. I mean, if they wanted it to be the new Velocity, then just call it what it is, you know? Hopefully they'll eliminate the pointless ECW championship, divide up the roster between Raw and SmackDown, and just let the Tuesday show be Superstars, or Heat, or Jacked, or Metal, or whatever the fuck. I hope they screw it and just cancel the whole damn show, honestly. I mean, overexposure has become a big problem for them, and that would help a lot. And since we are well into the video by now, about halfway through actually, a little more than halfway through, if you guys are wondering if I'm trying to avoid talking about Impact, well then you're not far off, because, well, let's be honest, Impact sucked this week. There was one good thing about the show. Chris Sabin going over all 3 members of the British Invasion in a 3-on-1 handicap match by himself. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm a huge mark for Chris Sabin, have been since the first time I saw the guy, so I thought this was fucking awesome. But this is TNA, so naturally they did what they always do. They immediately cut away from it and never mentioned it again. But nevertheless, this was really damn cool. The rest of the show, I don't even know if I have the right words to describe this. I mean, it was one of those shows that was so bad, you'd think the writers were actually trying to get themselves fired. I mean, it was awful. It's awful. I guess the best way I can think to say this is that if this was the first TNA show that I had ever seen in my entire life, after it was over, I would have no idea that they have a pay-per-view in 10 days. I would have no idea what the card is, no idea who the world champion is. I would think the women's division is a fucking joke, and I would have no idea that the X division even exists. The show is literally that bad. And I really don't want to spend a whole lot of time talking about this, honestly, because I'm just so damn frustrated. It's like Russo took all the worst elements of his Crash TV format, threw them all together in a big pot, and started stirring until he had shit soup. One of Hogan's main platforms right now is that Vince Russo is an idiot who has no idea how to write television. When you deliver shows like this, you're just making his point for him. I don't even know where to begin. I mean, how about all the wasted time? You had skits of Mick Foley looking for Jeff Jarrett in the TNA offices, couldn't find him. Looking for Jeff Jarrett in some restaurant, couldn't find him. Looking for Jeff Jarrett at some rest stop. I mean, is all this shit really necessary? Do we really need all this before we get to the Jarrett segment? Couldn't you just air the Jarrett segment, cut out the rest of that stuff, and then give the time you just freed up to something more important? Something like, oh, I don't know, giving AJ Styles, the World Heavyweight Champion, some goddamn screen time. Maybe promote the main event of Final Resolution. Maybe hype up the main event of Impact, which was the first ever in-ring confrontation of AJ Styles and Desmond Wolfe and should have been treated like a big deal and not just thrown out there randomly for a 5-minute match with no build-up whatsoever. Something like that. I mean, my God, I mean, you have time for backstage segments with Tara and ODB getting shit-faced, about 50 backstage segments with the Beautiful People, a Beautiful People mud wrestling match that has nothing to do with Final Resolution, nothing to do with anything, and you can't fit in the World Heavyweight Champion until the last 12 minutes of the show. You can't have his challenger at the pay-per-view on screen for more than 60 seconds. Don't you think your time should be used a little more wisely considering Final Resolution is in 2 weeks? You cut out all the skits of Foley looking for Jarrett, you cut out all the Beautiful People crap, you cut out Eric Young wrestling women, and you freed up like 20 minutes. And that's something you need to take advantage of because you have several pay-per-view matches you have not hyped up or promoted whatsoever. Feast or Fired. You never even mentioned the Feast or Fired match on TV until this week. Next week is the go-home show. You haven't even told us who's in the match yet. Please, TNA, explain to me, why should I pay my money to see this thing if I don't even know who's in the match? Why should I pay money to see half the matches on this pay-per-view if you don't even care enough to promote them? The hype for Final Resolution is atrocious. It's horrible. It's like they're not even trying. They're already looking ahead to Genesis, and they're just throwing Final Resolution away. And if that's going to be their attitude, then guess what? They are not getting my money this month. I'm going to stream this pay-per-view. Even though the card does look pretty good on paper, if TNA does not at least want to try to make me care about this pay-per-view, then I don't care enough to pay for it. Bottom line. And even some of the matches that actually have build-up are suffering right now because of pointless booking decisions. Putting Crystal Lashley in the ring, no one wants to see that. What, you didn't learn your lesson from Jenna Maraska and Charmel? And jobbing Hernandez out to Jesse Neal of all people? Are you fucking kidding me? Hernandez should be wiping his ass with Jesse Neal. You know what? I don't want to talk anymore. I really don't. This show was awful. It actually convinced me to not pay for Final Resolution, and that's really not what you want to be doing. So TNA, for God's sake, do better next week. Please. That's all I got. See ya.